Hi everybody and welcome to Out of the Gate, Daily Racing Form's weekend handicapping preview program. I'm Dan Ullman. Thanks so much for watching. Here's what's coming up in this week's edition of Out of the Gate. We are focusing on Oak Lawn Park on Saturday because that's where the Kentucky Derby prep action is. Two divisions of the prestigious Rebel Stakes featuring Bob Baffert odds-on favorites on the track's morning line. Also bonus coverage of Elate's return to the races in a quality edition of the Grade 2 Azeri Stakes for fillies and mares. Nicole Russo's Pedigree Picks segment, David Aragona's TimeformUS Spotlight. They're going to talk Rebel as well. JK's Play of the Day. He's got a pick 4 wager at Oak Lawn Park. And of course, we've got Craig Milkowski's TimeformUS Pace Projector. He's going to look at one of the stakes races at Oak Lawn as well. Plus horses to watch, best bets, and lots more. So let's break Out of the Gate. We begin Out of the Gate with our Horse Watch segment. Matt, we have seen some top turf sprinters already in 2019, but last week at Gulfstream Park, there was a super impressive performance. Going short on the lawn, everybody sat up and took notice.
Yeah, the turf sprinters are really kind of stamping themselves as a nice division to deal with. But boy, when you get a performance like the one Imprimis put forth in the Silks run most recently, I can't help but think, boy, I want to know if he can stretch out in distance. Here he is rolling up 3-4 path off the far turn. He's beating some really nice horses. Between you've got Vision Perfect, down on the rail you've got Pay Any Price, and Imprimis is in first gear. He's just absolutely burying these horses. Look at those fractions. He ultimately earned a 108 buyer and a 126 TimeformUS rating. I get it. He's a crack sprinter. There's a part of me, though, that I'd be lying if I said I wasn't curious if he could stretch out to a mile.
While not as visually impressive as Imprimis, Mike, you remain a true believer in the talents of Nicodemus.
Yeah, very interested to see where this lightly raced 4-year-old by Candy Ride ultimately winds up. This is the race we're going to look at now is his third start for Linda Rice, second off of a very long layoff. He's on relatively short rest here, too. You're going to see him down on the inside. He's got plenty of room down there, and he's going to come through to take this race over late and then hold off a stablemate of his to get the win with a 96 buyer. To me, this horse is all potential right now, guys, and this is his third straight race over a sloppy track, and I'm not so sure that this is what he really wants to do. I'm very interested to see what happens when Linda Rice gets him under some fast dirt and maybe gets him a little more distance than this and see what he can do, because I think this horse has stakes potential down the line.
We're used to seeing trainer Michael Maker take over the training of horses and improve turf horses, especially when stretching the mountain distance. It appears he can do it on the dirt as well. He got Dushare good. This horse was purchased for $40,000 at public auction over the summer. Maker took his time, gave him a layoff, and this is his third start back. Last week's Tom Fool handicap. Now listen, he got a beautiful pace setup. There was a wicked pace in front. Dushare came with a good strong kick, but he powered on home to win with a 105 buyer speed figure. I'm not saying Dushare is the 2019 Breeders' Cup Sprint winner, but we might see him in a race like the Grade 1 Carter next time out, and he might offer a little bit of value in that spot. Keep an eye on Dushare in 6-7 furlong races, maybe not the Grade 1 level, but in Grade 2s for the remainder of the spring and into the summer. Let's get to some handicapping. We got two divisions of the prestigious Rebel for Kentucky Derby hopefuls. Let's throw up the field of the first of two divisions of the Grade 2 Rebel Stakes at Oak Lawn on Saturday. We're going a mile and a 16th. $750,000 is the purse. This race carded as race number 8. For expanded stakes previews of all the major races all weekend long and lots more, please visit video.drf.com or the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel. Trainer Bob Baffert has the odds-on favorite in this race, the number 9 Improbable. We'll get to him in a minute, Matt, but there's another Southern California invader with some credentials, but he's getting the acid test for the first time in his short career.
Yeah, isn't it? That's really what we're looking at here with Galilean. This is the acid test. Is he ultimately going to be able to handle better company? Because if he can, all of a sudden he becomes a really interesting 3-year-old prospect as far as Derby aspirations are concerned. If you believe that this is what you're going to get on Saturday, visually, this was him burying an inferior field in the Cal Cup Derby. He looked awesome visually. Now the question comes, or becomes, can you do this against better horses? And also from a numbers standpoint, let's also just call a spade a spade. He's a little bit light on figs. If he takes a step forward, he's very interesting, but at a short price, I want him to prove to me that he can.
He might work out a really nice trip tracking the long shot expected pace setter. That is Classy John. Mike, Everybody knows what Bob Baffert has done at Oaklawn over the years with his 3-year-olds. He's got the 2 odds-on morning line favorites in both divisions of the Rebel, and Improbable has looked extremely good in his short career.
Yeah, right. Even if this wasn't the original plan for Baffert with Improbable, you know that when he ships to Oaklawn, his horses tend to show up. Improbable's going to be very difficult to beat in this race based on what he did as a 2-year-old. We're going to look at his final start as a 2-year-old last December at Los Alamitos. He's a big favorite in this race, a grade 1. I thought he did really well in this race. First time around 2 turns, he was a little keen early, I thought, but I like the way he finishes this race off. It seems to me that the distance should be no problem for him. He's not facing a stretch out here for his 3-year-old debut. I think if he just shows up, runs his best race, he's too good for these horses. Matt, I think you might agree with me.
Yeah, I thought he was the most talented 2-year-old male based on that effort. Obviously, he looks great. 2 turns isn't an issue. Baffert, Oaklawn, I'll take my chances here. I know he's not going to be any price, but I just think he's far and away the most likely winner.
He is doubtlessly the horse to beat. I might take a short stab against him with the number 1 Extra Hope. Another Southern California invader, this one going out for trainer Dick Mandela. This is his most recent race. Now, it is over a sealed, sloppy track. You always have to worry about when horses show marked improvement over wet tracks. But I like the way Extra Hope showed improved early speed, took over in the lane, kept on going over a decent enough field. He was no match for Improbable in the Los Al Futurity, but sometimes horses just don't seem to take to that Los Alamitos track, and Extra Hope was floated wide going into the first turn that day. He has gotten better with 2 turns, and I like this inside post. I think he's going to tuck into 4th in the second flight while saving ground. Under Mike Smith, he should be a playable price. Listen, Improbable is a horse you must use in multiple race wagers, and some might say as your only A, but I'll take a little stab with Extra Hope in the grade 2 Rebel. We've got Nicole Russo talking about the Rebel in her Pedigree pick segment, and then we've got Craig Milkowski from TimeformUS. He's got a pace projector for one of the stakes races at Oaklawn. Don't miss it.
Hey everyone, Nicole Russo coming to you for Out of the Gate. As you well know by now, this weekend's Rebel Stakes at Oaklawn Park will be run in 2 divisions. One division topped by unbeaten Grade 1 winner Improbable. That son of City Zip is the subject of this week's Derby Watch Pedigree profile, which you can find in Friday's print edition or at DRF.com. The other division, which we're taking a closer look at right now, topped by unbeaten Eclipse Award champion Game Winner, whose pedigree we've already analyzed extensively. He's by Candy Ride and from the immediate family of champion Fleet Indian. So we're going to take a look at a couple of his challengers with interesting pedigrees in here, start to get you familiar with some of those horses. We're going to start with Omaha Beach, who's very well regarded off a powerhouse maiden score at Santa Anita, which we'll take a look at here. Now, he's by Warfront, of course, a very popular international sire who can certainly get you a good juvenile, a quick horse, but also horses that can still develop and go a bit of a distance of ground if he's crossed with the right female family. You look at his Declaration of War, a Group 1 winner who ran so well in the Breeders' Cup Classic. And Omaha Beach, as you're watching him here in that impressive maiden score, is a half-brother to champion 2-year-old filly Take Charge Brandy. But it's what I see under his second dam that's the most encouraging to me. The second dam is, of course, the multiple Grade 1 winner Take Charge Lady, a route runner who has developed into an outstanding broodmare, producing champion Will Take Charge and Florida Derby winner Take Charge Indy. Now, both of those long-winded horses who developed in their 3-year-old year, right about now is when you'd expect to see a horse from this family starting to really get good, as Omaha Beach, of course, stepping up into stakes company in the Rebel. I also want to take a quick look in the same division at Kazirenga, whose only win so far came in this maiden at Remington, but his pedigree really jumped out at me with some familiar names. He's by Candy Ride and out of an AP Indy mare. That's the same stamina-laden cross that Game Winner is bred on. And actually, Improbable is also out of an AP Indy mare, that leading broodmare sire well represented here. Kazirenga's dam is the multiple graded stakes winner Teammate, a grade 2 winner around 2 turns, second in the Alabama, going 1.25 miles to the very good Pine Island. Now, she's the dam of stakes winner Team of Teams, who won it up to 1 mile. Out of Grade 1 place stakes winner Starry Dreamer, Teammate is a half-sister to several stakes horses, including 2 Grade 2 winner and that prominent sire Warfront. A really classy female family that maybe says sort of middle route distances around 1 1/8 to me, but powered up with Candy Ride, who of course has sired a lot of top level winners at that 1 1/4. And I do think that Kazirenga might enjoy some ground. Well, a huge card on Saturday at Oaklawn Park, the highlight as we take you through all of the weekend's action here on Out of the Gate. And next up, Craig is going to take a closer look with the TimeformUS Pace Projector.
Hi, this is Craig Milkowski at TimeformUS for this week's edition of Out of the Gate, the Pace Projector segment. This week I'm going to look at the Azari Stakes, which is being run at Oaklawn Park, where they're holding their big Rebel Stakes, which has been split into 2 divisions. But I'm leaning towards the Azari Stakes because of how the Pace Projector displays the race as a race that's going to favor horses on or near the early lead. So as you can see on our race preview page here, it's pretty obvious who I'm going to be picking, the number 1 horse, but we'll get to that one in just a minute. The reason I am picking that horse is because there's some other high-profile horses in here, some bigger names, but I think the tactical advantage for that 1 horse, Tappa Tappa Tappa, is going to be big and a little bit much to overcome, and I think the price is going to be right just because of the reputation some of these horses have, and deservedly so. First, let's take a closer look at that Pace Projector, and we can see there's just not a whole lot of speed here. You can see it on the preview page where Tappa 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 is listed as a tracker. She has won both on the lead and sitting just off the lead, but she definitely prefers to be up near the front. But her TimeformUS early speed rating is just much higher than everybody else in the field, which is why we show her clear in here. The first horse I want to talk about that definitely has a better reputation is Midnight Bassoux. She really likes this 1 1/16 distance. You can see in her last 6 starts, she's won all 3 at that distance. One was by DQ in the Cotillion, where she beat champion Monomoy Girl. But she's also won 2 others. She won it in Houston. She won the Mother Goose at Belmont. And so this distance is one for her. Just the only reason I'm really against her, she's been in good form, is just the lack of pace in here. She definitely is a horse that prefers to come from off the lead. She did win against a slow pace last time at Houston, but it was against much easier competition than she's going to face in this one. Elate's probably the big horse and almost for sure the likely post-time favorite. I have no real knocks against this horse. She ran a huge figure last time out when narrowly beaten by Abel Tasman, but that last time was way back in August at Saratoga. It was a huge race. It was a big gap turned into a match race in the stretch. It was almost 10 lengths back to the rest of the field. She's clearly the most talented horse in here. I'm just not sure this is really the goal. I'm sure she's prepping for the Apple Blossom. I believe that's what's been mentioned on their schedule. So I doubt she's going to be fully cranked. And while she is a horse that has tactical speed, this race could be just a little bit short for her. And again, she, the 1 horse who I mentioned briefly, Tappa Tappa Tappa, is going to have a bit of an advantage pace-wise. Another horse that most people are going to be familiar with is a Breeders' Cup winner in Shamrock Rose. Now, she won the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Sprint, coming from well behind, but she has shown some success routing before. She sits a little bit closer to the pace routing, as you might expect, than she does sprinting, but I don't really think she's going to be a pace factor in here. You can see her 2 big wins routing on synthetic surface, where the pace is much slower generally than it was on dirt. Not just from our pace figures, as you can see here, where they were pretty low, but also it's just they run slower. It's generally different race shapes in synthetic races. I mean, it's just a general rule. It doesn't happen all the time, but she's a horse who, I expect her to be in that second flight behind the leader, but I'm not sure her kick will be just quite as devastating as it was in the sprint race. Which brings us to Tappa Tappa Tappa, the horse that I'm going to select here. And it's not just based on the pace edge. I mean, knowing a horse is going to have the early lead and whether they can hang on the win or not is a different story. But I think this horse is the good. She's a 5-year-old mare. She's getting really good. She's third race off a long layoff. She ran a really nice 1:15 TimeformUS speed figure. She wasn't asked too much in the stretch in that one. And I really like the distance of the Azari here. I think it's perfect for her. I think she's going to have plenty left turning for home, and I think she's going to be a tough one to run down. Just a side note, it's not shown in the graphic here, but she did beat Elate back in Tampa, way back a couple years ago when these two were 3-year-olds, and she had a similar advantage on the lead. So that's going to be my pick for this week. Tappa, tappa, tappa. Good luck, and I'll see you again next week.
Are you a horse player looking to raise your game? For over 120 years, expert handicappers have relied on Daily Racing Form as their must-have source for news and data, featuring exclusive buyer speed figures, TimeformUS pace figures, and integrated replays. DRF Formulator is the most powerful handicapping tool on the market today. Use what the pros use. Go to drf.com/formulator and enter code DRFTV to get your first card free. drf.com. Raise your game.
Welcome back to Out of the Gate. Let's take a look at the field for the second division of the Grade 2 Rebel Stakes. $750,000 is the purse, going a mile and a 16th. This race number 10 also is your DRF Bet Saturday race of the day, which means you can access free Formulator past performances on the Race of the Day event page at drf.com. And for expanded stakes previews of all the major races this weekend, head on over to video.drf.com or the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel. We've got the 2-year-old champion making his seasonal debut, but we also have a talented horse from Southern California named Omaha Beach, Matt, and boy, was he a money burner early in his career. Has he turned it around?
It totally possible. I mean, there's always been a little bit of a buzz behind this horse. He did debut and start his career going long on turf, and then all of a sudden, in his most recent start, this was going 7/8 of a mile, very clearly on a sloppy sealed track, and he goes out and airs. Look at those fractions again. He earns a 90 buyer, a nice 113 raw time form rating. He did beat a terrible field that day. This race, though, I don't know what to do with it. It could very easily be the wet track that he relished. Maybe he finally just found a field he could handle. I have a funny feeling he's bred to go long. I wonder if shorter is better for him. Maybe he is sort of that 7/8 one-turn miler when it's all said and done.
But I do expect him to be hustled out of there, maybe try to find a spot sitting third or fourth and get the jump on the 2-year-old champ, turning into the stretch. Game winner, Mike, 93 buyer speed figure in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. A lot of folks were down on that effort. It actually came back slower than the Juvenile fillies that same day. It has produced a few next out winners, but there are a lot of handicappers that we respect that are still kind of down on this horse.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what he does. I mean, I actually feel like, I know it was a little step back on the buyer scale when he won the Breeders' Cup. I actually feel like he ran really well in this race. He kept closer to a pretty solid pace. He was wide every step of the way, and he's still going to come get a big long shot on the lead here in Knicks Go. I know Knicks Go hasn't, he is one horse who hasn't flattered this performance, but there are some other horses behind him who actually have come out of this race to run well. And I just think the game winner did what he had to do here. I think this is a really nice horse, obviously undefeated 2-year-old champ. Is he the more vulnerable of the two Baffert horses in these two divisions? I think he might be the more vulnerable of the two, but I still couldn't find anybody to play against him. But this is a really good horse that if Baffert sends him over right, they're going to have their hands full with him.
Matt, you mentioned in the stakes preview that maybe if you're going to try to beat one of these Bafferts, it's off of the layoff, and you've got a sharp horse that loves the local strip.
Yeah, we're going to find out what we get from Laughing Fox here. Maybe this is a little bit too much, a little bit too tall an ask here for him here in his third start off the bench. This, you already have kind of missed out on the big piece where the pace was unbelievable this day, and he got a beautiful ride from Ricardo Santana. I love here, though, that it looks like for a minute he's in deep water, and perhaps the 3-horse gets a little bit tired. You see him pop to his left lead, but I like that Laughing Fox keeps reaching out for ground. Keep in mind, this was only his second lifetime start, going a mile and a 16th. He's a perfect 2 for 2 based on pedigree. Distance is what he wants, and if the pace is hot, like I hope it is, he should be running at the end. We'll find out if this is too much, though.
I'm going to agree with Mike, and I'm going to chalk out in here with the number 5 game winner. He's not maybe the most brilliant Baffert horse we've ever seen, but he's a real, true, solid little professional. As Mike mentioned, he was very wide every step, 4 wide both turns in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. We saw that bump he took from Knicks Go in mid-stretch, and he just kept about his business. I think Baffert ships to Oakland to mean business. I think game winner is going to get some pace to run him down in the stretch. He'll be my top selection in the second division of the Rebel Stakes. Let's move to the filly and mare division. The Azari features several Grade 1 stakes winners. Let's throw up the field for the Azeri Stakes. $350,000 is the purse. We're going a mile and a 16th for fillies and mares. This race carded as race number 7 at Oaklawn on Saturday. For expanded stakes previews, please visit video.drf.com or the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel. We've got all the major races covered and lots more. Late comes back off a long layoff, but the morning line favorite in this race, Matt, is Midnight Bisou, a Grade 1 stakes winner who has recency over her main competition, and I thought it was a good starting off point at Sam Houston. She had to work last time.
Yeah, a workmanlike performance here. Let's take a look at that stretch run right now. You're going to see her right now. It looks like she might be in a little bit of deep water considering the fractions aren't that fast, and she's catching some horses that were in good form, but admittedly she's just better than those, and she ultimately runs them down, wins by just under a length. I agree with you, Dan. I think it's a good starting off point. I think she should move forward here. The question is, if Elate shows up with her best, is it going to be enough to handle her?
Midnight Bisou has a race this year. Elate doesn't, and neither does Eskimo Kisses, herself a Grade 1 winner of the Alabama. Now, the layoff is a worry, but also the pace situation, Mike. I mean, this horse is a stone-cold closer, and there doesn't appear to be a lot of speed in this race.
Yeah, I'm not sure this race is really going to set up all that well for Eskimo Kisses, and what she really wants is pace. We're going to go back to the Alabama last summer at Saratoga, and this is the kind of race that's set up perfectly for her, guys. I mean, there was a good pace going on, and you're going to see Eskimo Kisses. I mean, she's really the only one finished in here. Everybody else, they're all done in mid-stretch. She's going to go on, take over here, and now the race is all over. She wants distance. She wants a good pace in front of her. She got both of those things in here. It seems like in her first start now as a 4-year-old, she may not get what she wants, but she's still a pretty talented filly, and if they do get going in front of her, she will be running at the end.
But we all agree that the horse to beat is Elate, returning off a 203-day layoff. Sometimes these mares don't come back as good off long layoffs, and Bill Mott will even admit he likes Elate at slightly longer distances. A mile and a 16 is kind of sprinty for Elate, but on her best day, Matt, she's the best horse, isn't she?
I kind of think so. I mean, the mile and the 16th, it might be a little bit on the sharp side. Let's go back to her most recent run. Here's the concern. This run came up at Saratoga on Travers Day. This was in the Personal Ensign. It was an awesome effort. Her and Abel Tasman, they throw it down. There's a little bit of an incident here coming up, but the question is she going to be ready to go off this layoff? And then, as you made mention, is she going to be ready to go at a mile and a 16th against horses that have a little bit of recency? I'm just going to chalk it up and say I think she's the best horse.
Yeah, I agree with Matt here, too. I mean, you have to worry about the things that Matt brought up, the layoff and the shorter distance. But to me, she's just better than these horses. If she shows up and Mott's got her just about ready to go in here, I think she's just going to be too good for these.
I'll make it a consensus. I'm going to go with Elate as well. I think she'll be the favorite at post time. Had a little bit of a splint issue after that 105 Beyer performance that we just saw against Abel Tasman, but I trust Mott. He's been on absolute fire for the last 3 or 4 months, and Elate has a little bit more tactical speed than some of her rivals. I think she'll be fresh off the layoff, and maybe she could find a good spot tracking the likely long shot pace setter, Tappa. So we'll all go with Elate in the Azeri. JK's got a pick 4 play at Oaklawn on Saturday. David Aragona of TimeformUS spotlights one of the divisions of the Rebel. Stay with us. We got best bets still coming up.
Hey everybody, welcome to JK's Play of the Day. It's Rebel Weekend, Rebel 1, Rebel 2. We're going to go to Oaklawn Park. We're going to play a pick 4. It's one of those JK pick 4s, lots of singles. Don't play it for 50 cents. Play it for $2, $4, $5, $10. Whatever your budget will allow. We're going to start in race 7 with the Azeri. Very simple here. We're going to single Elate in this spot. She is the 5 horse, I believe. Elate coming in off of a break. She won the Delaware Handicap off of a break at a mile and a quarter. Bill Mott knows this filly really well. The mile and a 16th off a layoff is not going to be a problem for her. I think ultimately Midnight Bisou and Shamrock Rose will take money in this spot based on their names. Shamrock Rose being a Breeders' Cup filly and mare sprint winner. I think those horses will take money, get a better price on Elate. I'm ice cold there with Elate. Going on to Rebel number 1, the first edition. I kind of wish these Baffert horses landed in different spots. I thought Long Range Toddy was interesting. You could use him as a little bit of a price, but I think Improbable is the most likely Kentucky Derby winner at this point. I have to use him here. I'm going to single Improbable in the second leg. Single Elate, single Improbable. On to the Essex, a much more complicated race for me. I'm going to use 4 horses. I'm going to use the 2 Calumet horses, Hintz. I think Hintz is coming into a big race, has been training well. That horse has obviously run well in the past. has run well at Oaklawn, and he's trained by Steve Asmussen, who obviously excels at Oaklawn. Sonneteer was my play in the Razorback last time. I thought that horse ran well, down on the rails, not where you want it to be. And then Giant Expectations, coming in off of a performance where he ran third to Battle of Midway and McKenzie, both of which would be odds on in this spot. Those are the only three I need there. And then I'm going to use two horses in the Rebel number 2. I'm going to use Game Winner, the most likely winner in this spot. Obviously, he presents a big problem for the rest of the horses with his 2-year-old form and his trainer, Bob Baffert. But he's the most vulnerable of the two Bafferts for me, so I'm going to also use Omaha Beach, a horse that I tried to beat in the past, but that horse has shown me how talented he is by overcoming my negative opinion on him, and I'm going to use a little bit of Omaha Beach. So Game Winner and Omaha Beach for me in the second edition of the Rebel. Good luck, and we'll see you next week.
Hi everyone, I'm David Aragona with this week's TimeformUS Spotlight. I'm going to be taking a look at one of the divisions of the Rebel Stakes being run on Saturday at Oaklawn Park. I'm not trying to be improbable in the first division, which goes as race 8, but I want to focus on the second division of the Rebel, race 10 on Saturday, the one that features last year's 2-year-old champion, Game Winner. I'm a fan of Game Winner. I liked him last year. I think all of his races were legitimately strong, but he's facing a pretty tough cast of characters and some interesting challengers in this race, and I think it's worth taking a deeper look at whether or not Game Winner is going to win in his first start back off the layoff. We'll start by jumping right into Game Winner's past performances, and look, he's never lost a race. He's obviously very talented. He's earned some of the highest TimeformUS speed figures in this field, all of which were from his 2-year-old season. The 118 that he earned in the American Pharaoh 2 back would make him a winner of this race most likely. And even though his number dipped down slightly in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile last time, if you watch that race, you see that he ran very well that day because he was wide all the way around the track, didn't have the most comfortable trip, took a hard bump at the top of the stretch, and still proved much the best that day. There's been some chatter about how strong that Breeders' Cup Juvenile field really was in retrospect, because we have seen some disappointing performances from horses coming out of that race, most notably Nick's Go, who's just been a shadow of his 2-year-old self in subsequent starts, and also Signalman disappointed in the Fountain of Youth a couple weekends ago. But overall, I think a lot of the juvenile form has held up over time. The speed figure seems legitimate, even though a bunch of horses haven't come out of that race to win many of these 3-year-old stakes races or to improve on their 2-year-old form. It at least validates that Game Winner ran at least as well as the speed figures indicate. I think one of the big questions for Game Winner heading into this Rebel is, well, number one, how fit is he? But the bigger question for me is what kind of trip is he going to get? Because there is a lot of speed in this division of the race. We'll look at the TimeformUS pace projector and you see there are 3 horses across the track on the lead. There are a bunch of horses in this field who are real need the lead types. I'm really looking at horses like the number 1 Market King, a long shot, as well as the number 4 Jersey Agenda, who want to be forwardly placed. We'll see what we get from horses like Omaha Beach, as well as some speed to the outside. There are horses who could make this into a fast pace, and you see Game Winner's the number 5 horse. He's predicted to be all the way back in 7th position early, so he might have to come from off the pace in this race. It's something that we've seen him do before. He came from about 5 lengths back to take the Del Mar Futurity in his second start, and he came from 7th place about 4 lengths back to win the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, so Game Winner can pass horses. It's just he might get a more taxing trip than his stablemate Improbable projects to in the first division of this race, and at an extremely short price, I'm just interested to look at some alternatives to Game Winner. One horse that figures to attract a ton of support is the impressive last out maiden winner Omaha Beach. He earned a 118 TimeformUS speed figure for that 9-length win in the slop last time at Santa Anita. He was visually impressive that day, but was he really beating much? Do I trust that he's going to repeat that effort, stretching out the 2 turns against graded stakes foes for the first time? Not really. This is the kind of horse that I'm just always going to want to take a shot against. That last speed figure is the only number in his past performances that makes him remotely competitive against this field, and he had everything go his way that day. I know on the surface of things, people are going to look at the fractions of that race and say, oh, well, 21-3, 43-3, he was flying up front. Take a look at the TimeformUS pace figures for that race, because it was not a red color-coded pace. The track at Santa Anita was just extremely fast that day. You see that track condition rating of 9. 9, which is right below the highest rating of 10, which would be as fast as the track can be. So the fact that he was running some swift fractions up front really just speaks to how fast the track was playing, not really how fast Omaha Beach is. And I think that's illustrated when we looked at the pace projector. He's not predicted to be on the lead in this race. Now, maybe if the pace projector was only based on his last race, he would be a little closer to the pace, but there are other fast horses in this field, and I'm just not sure that Omaha Beach is going to be able to sit the kind of trip that he would need to be successful here. So I'm somewhat against him as the second choice. Another horse that could take some support is the number 8 horse, Gunmetal Gray. I don't think he's going to be 10-1 as he is on the morning line. He's a horse that fits this race very well from a pace perspective, because just looking through the TimeformUS late pace ratings of all the horses in this race, his 105 really sticks out, because there are not many true closers in this field, and that's what Gunmetal Gray is. He's going to be making one late run. I don't know if he's quite fast enough to win this race, looking at his overall TimeformUS speed figures, but he is going to get the right trip in this race, and a closer like him will be dangerous if the race falls apart. I'm definitely using him in my exotics, but he's not a horse that I really want to rely on to win the race. The horse that interests me most as the alternative to game winner is the number 7, Our Brain Trust. He's the kind of horse that I feel like a lot of people are underrating. He's 6-1 in the morning line, and I think that is an overlay on a horse that has already run fast enough to win this race. Frankly, that 121 TimeformUS speed figure that he earned in the Withers last time out, that is the highest number in the race. It's higher than any number game winner has ever earned. And I know some people have been a little skeptical of that Withers speed figure, whether it's the Beyer or the TimeformUS number, but we saw horses come back in the Tampa Bay Derby last week and validate that Withers number. Admire, who finished 5th, came back and ran 2 points higher, and Sir Winston, who finished 4th in the Withers, came back and repeated his speed figure. So I think that Withers fig might actually be legitimate, and if it is, Our Brain Trust is a serious rival for game winner, because he actually ran very well within the context of that Withers. That race was dominated by horses that rode the rail. We saw a gold rail on Sunday at Aqueduct after that day, and it felt like the rail was kind of getting pretty strong towards the end of the Withers card, so I thought, if anything, Our Brain Trust was against the track that day. He's going to appreciate the slight cutback to 1 1/16, and we've seen Mark Cassie already bring in some live runners to take down stakes for 3-year-olds at Oaklawn Park. So I think Our Brain Trust is an interesting horse as an alternative to game winner. I don't know if he's necessarily going to win the race, but if I'm playing exacta boxes, I definitely want to key on these two horses. So hopefully Our Brain Trust can outrun his odds in the Withers on Saturday, in the Rebel on Saturday. Now let's send it back to the studio.
Time for our best bet segment here on Out of the Gate. Matt, you've got something at Tampa Bay Downs on Saturday.
Yeah, the opener 7/8 of a mile, bottom level claimers. Speed is king going this distance down there, so that's kind of what I'm looking for with the number 6, Great Harbor K. Let's go to the run 2 starts back from this horse. Keep in mind, we're talking about speed here, and I understand this horse was forwardly placed in this race and ultimately gets run down. It is what it is. I'm not going to hold that against him. He set a legitimate pace. The fractions were color-coded red, according to TimeformUS. The most recent start, they actually stretched this horse out to 1 mile and 40 yards over a sloppy sealed track against much tougher. Draw a line through that. They drop him back to this level and this distance. Blinkers go on. You got one way to go. Send him to the front and say, come and catch me.
Mike Beer, NYRA analyst, you've got something early on the Aqueduct Saturday card. It's something we all say every day here at DRF.
Yeah, race number 2 is a mile for maiden fillies. Enjoy it while we can is the number 6 in this race. And a lot like Matt, actually, I'm hoping that this horse can get to the front on this field. She's stretching out for the first time, but she has more speed than it may appear on paper. We're going to look at her career debut. This is back in December, and you're going to see her in a second. She's going to get tired in this race. She's been chasing the horse on the lead here, a big favorite, a stablemate of hers for Kieran McLaughlin, and she just gets really tired in the stretch. But she did a lot of work early chasing this horse. She came back for 1 start after this. She did not break well. She got bumped back at the start. She wound up over behind horses in the stretch and only could finish 3rd. But she's got more speed than it looks on paper. Against this field stretching out, I think she can get to the front on them, and she's a square price at 3-1 on the morning line.
Might be a nice spot for enjoy it while we can. Not only some nice stakes races at Oaklawn Park on Saturday, Laurel full of stakes action as well. We'll have the previews up by Friday afternoon. Race number 9, I'm going to go with the number 6, Anna's Bandit. It's the Conniver Stakes, and Anna's Bandit won the Conniver last year off a similar layoff. Let's go back to her most recent start, her only start this year. Now, I usually don't trust 5.5 furlong Beyer speed figures. Sometimes they're inflated. Anna's Bandit won this race really easily. 89 Beyer speed figure, just taking this field gate to wire and really punishing them in the stretch, drawing out to win by 5 lengths. I like the fact that this barn gave her 2 months off after this race because she ran 13 times in 2018 without a break. She won this race last year. It appears they're pointing to this race, and she has the tactical speed where she doesn't need the lead. And I think she's going to be sitting 3rd or 4th in the early portion of this race, ready to attack on the turn. 5-2 on the morning line for the 6, Anna's Bandit in race number 9 at Laurel on Saturday. We thank you for watching Out of the Gate, and we urge you to follow all of DRF TV's offerings on social media. Please follow on Twitter at DRF Video. And for the latest news and notes from America's Turf Authority Daily Racing Form, please follow on Twitter at DRF Inside Post. That's it for this week. Best of luck when your horses break out of the gate.